depths and, I should say, to the doom that follows arrogance of power, as Senator Fulbright says.
Welcome to another episode of You Left Shit Out. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ. Dropped early yesterday. They are important. Excuse me. So we're gonna cover those stories. Actually, let me put the graphic up so you can see what we're covering today. So AOC calls for resignation, and it's the resignation of I think he's either the name of his position is director or president. He's the head of the New York State Democrats committee or something like that. He's the head of it. She's calling for his resignation because, and I'll bring up this article because, let me take this down for a second, because New York seats were flipped from blue to red. Several seats were flipped, and there's an article that I'm going to paraphrase. If the Democrats lose the House, it was through the state of New York. And that's kind of what we're going to be covering from that angle. And so there's a whole infighting that's going on between Democrats and the state of New York. So if you're not in New York, you may not necessarily know about this story, but it's connected indirectly, or you could say directly, connected to also the other story of Maloney blames AOC for his loss. This is all connected, and it's sort of a mildly intricate story. So we're going to get in to that. And then, of course, we cover the student debt forgiveness scam, because it's a scam. This was a scam for votes. But the way it was done, we have people blaming a Texas judge when the blame should be on the Democratic Party, specifically Joe Biden, in trying to cancel student loan in this way. Are we not understanding that almost like we're talking about in the late 80s, early 90 percentile of that we have attorneys? Okay, so do we think the Democrats had no clue that this was going to happen? Is that what we think? Because Bree actually did a stream on this. It wasn't on her channel, Bad Faith. It was on The Hill. She did a segment, I should say, or Radar, where she talked about how people were saying the way that he's canceling debt is set up to where he knows it's going to fail, that is going to be challenged and overturned. So we'll get into that story, or those are the two main stories. So let me type that in. What's his name? Maloney blames AOC. I'm probably going to start with the student debt story. Yeah, I think I'm going to start with the student debt story because the other one is a lot more stuff to cover. So student debt forgiveness, and we're going to call it, or it is a scam. Not we're going to call it, but it is a scam that was perpetrated to get votes. That's essentially what happened here. Sorry. So typically I would be leaving to get my daughter from school right now, but she's homesick. So both my daughters are homesick, or two of my daughters are homesick. So that's the reason why I don't have to leave at this point. And that was the alarm. But there's a second video. Now, it was this video or another video. I was deciding which one to play. So let me play the other video that was going to be the other choice I had for being a sort of intro video for today's stream. And Let me see where it's at. Okay, so right here. So this is a Democracy Now! Video, but it was posted by the Debt Collectors, or the Debt Collective. I'm sorry, and the Debt Collective is a organization that's pushing for cancellation of student debt. So, oops, did I hit enter? There we go. So let's play this video. It's a short video. It's about 1.5 minutes, just to kind of get the mind going on the topic. Now, this is not a video that's based on the court decision. This is a video based on the amount of money being canceled, or supposedly canceled at the time. So let's pause it. Is it pausing? Okay, there it goes. Let's pause it, and then let me expand this here. All right, so let's listen to him speak, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
The $10,000 proposal is grossly inadequate based on very strong data of race, of the macroeconomic data, and also just in terms of what political rewards President Biden could reap. I think what we've seen from major editorial boards across the country is a deep misunderstanding of this issue and perhaps a commitment to the commodification of higher education. There's been these suggestions or proposals to possibly tweak some of the repayment programs that we currently have now, like public service loan forgiveness or income-driven repayment programs, as if those are new ideas, when in fact we've been tweaking and fixing these broken proposals for a couple of decades now, and no one has gotten relief from these proposals, which is why we're calling on full student debt cancellation. And there's also been a huge conflation of canceling all student debt with the end-all solution of making college free. No, that would require legislation, but the $10,000 proposal, I think, is sort of a way that the Biden administration and neoliberals think that they can sort of thread a needle of appeasing the right while satisfying the left, when in actuality, it's just going to frustrate everyone. And so they should really just go big, cancel all of it.
So that's what this attempt was. And it actually was an attempt and it was an successful attempt. If the goal was to prevent the historic sort of wave of the other party or the opposing party in the third year of a new president, if that's your goal, hasn't it been accomplished in many different supposed or things that the mainstream media has classified as wins for the Biden administration? The Inflation Reduction Act, the pardoning of marijuana, people who aren't even in prison. All these things are to signal for like he's doing something when he's not. Student loan forgiveness was another one. Now look what happened with this. Now say you had a bunch of lawyers on your team, like the Democrats do, and you have the same donors as the Republicans, and the Republicans are the ones who can openly say what the donors want to do, which is no way, Jose. What is a way that you can craft a narrative for the nation that one party is making an attempt and the other party foiled that attempt? How about if we had some lawyers again, if we had a bunch of lawyers on our team, how about we come up with, we're going to cancel it and we're going to do it, but we're going to do it in such a flimsy way that we know any lawyer with any brain will come around and attack this. Now, it may not be stricken down, but there's a high likely that it will be stricken down. Okay, ruling class donors, is that okay to do that plan? Okay, and that's the plan. That's what I'm saying happened here. So let's do our checks. And for those that are brand new, our checks just means we do a chat check where we go through our chat and just talk, put your comments up before we get deep into the conversation. So we'll do that. And then what we also do is what is known as a like check, because we get so engrossed in conversation and, the chat, we sometimes forget to like, and I completely understand. So I'm just reminding everybody. So we are at 109 likes right now, and we got 210 people watching. Could we push that to maybe 175? That'll jump our the amount of people here in the chat by a lot, by maybe 50 or more people. So let's try to push to 175 and we can get those numbers up. And then if you're watching this on replay, join our Substack and you can get notifications for streams just like this, unannounced, unplanned, unscheduled streams. I think I sent this out an hour. Was it more than an hour? Maybe at least an hour ahead of time. Could have been more than an hour ahead of time before the stream, so that those that that would typically watch our live streams are notified. Hey, this is an unscheduled stream. If you want to watch, so join our Substack and you'll get that notification. We also do it for clips. Now, this is where we were yesterday. We finally hit, not finally, we hit 25,000. Hooray. Thank you for everybody that helped get us there. The goal is 30,000. So the hashtag is hashtag RBN to 30K and 5,000 more. The goal was by the end of the year, and I think we can still do it. But let's get an update since yesterday. How many have we jumped? Let's see. Quite a bit. Looks like we've jumped by over 300. So over 300. It could be attributed to Nick appearing on Jimmy Dore and his clip was uploaded yesterday, or appearing on the mother of all talk shows. So if you're brand new, welcome. So at least 300 new subscribers. So if you're brand new, welcome. We have a variety of different viewers. Everybody's not a leftist. Everybody's, not an anarchist. We have a little bit of everything. We have a little bit of all different ages, literally kind of evened out. We have international people, so really proud of our audience and just the representation of different voices, different ideology, because representation only matters if it comes from a place of a different opinion. So so that is our subscribers. So 175 is the target. Now let's get into the topic. And our first topic is going to be the student debt forgiveness scam. Now, this video, like I said, is an older video, so it's not part of what happened today or what happened with the court ruling, which it was yesterday. I think it was Thursday. But just in general, the amount that's being canceled. Now, let me go to my notes here. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to cover for the AOC and the NC and the New York Democrats. But stay tuned for that. That's upcoming after this first segment on student loan forgiveness, struck down by a court as unconstitutional. So maybe we should start there. Let me bring up. Let's go to Twitter and just bring up a quick headline to start the segment out. I can't believe it's been ruled unconstitutional, which to me is very weird. But let's look and see. Oops, that's not what I meant to type. Unconstitutional student. It was trending before, but now, let's see if it's still trending. Student loan forgiveness. I'll go here. So let's look at some headlines and see what is what. Here is one here. This is Ken Klippenstein. Now, I know, yeah, he's a liberal, but still, it's just an article headline. So let's read what he has here. Let's make this real large for the seeing impaired like myself. All right, so breaking. This is from The Intercept. We're just reading headlines now. I don't normally use The Intercept as a source, but let's read it. It's a headline. A federal judge has struck down Biden's student loan forgiveness program after a plaintiff filed suit alleging it was unfair to people who didn't qualify. Now, this is Ken's adding to this. But the plaintiff is a business owner who had $47,000 or almost $48,000. Let's just call it that. It's $4 short. Who had $48,000 in PPP loans forgiven in 2020. I don't know if "but" is the right word because they're not connected stories, but you're saying the point is that this person got this forgiven. This is what happens when you have the dictatorship of capital. So let's back out from here and see what other headlines there might be. And then we'll get into Brianna Joy Gray's tweet. Let's hope that it doesn't pop up before I get there. All right, so here is CNBC. Squid Diddley. I actually follow her. I wonder if she's here watching. So this one from CNBC, and here is the headline. Biden administration stop at taking application for student loan forgiveness. And I'll read the subheadline. The Biden administration has stopped accepting applications for federal student loan forgiveness after a court struck down the plan on Thursday evening. You like that? That sounds like a fighter. Let's see. Is this another one? This is CNN here. And I'll read. This is from Dark Warlord. Federal court strikes down Biden student loan forgiveness program. CNN Politics. Remember when federal court struck down Obama bailing out the finance and auto industry for trillions? Yeah, me either. This is BS. And this is the headline from CNN. What student loan borrowers need to know after a federal court strikes down Biden's student loan forgiveness program. I'll assume it says that. Student loan borrowers are now waiting indefinitely to see if they'll receive debt relief under President Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness program. So I think we've read enough headlines, but I forgot to do a chat. But let's do the chat with comments about this headline first. So let's go to your comments about Joe Biden. Let me move this up a little bit here so you can see the comments of Dark Warlord. So let's check out some of your comments so far about this story. Let's see. No surprise. Yeah, no surprise. Black Marxism, the worst nightmare of U.S. imperialism. Like clockwork, isn't it? Isn't it funny how the news came out on a Friday? You notice the news they don't want people to keep the cycle to keep talking about is on a Friday. So the news drops on a Thursday, but Thursday evening, which is basically Friday. And it's a few days after the election where young voters came out and sort of push back against any sort of red wave that could have happened. or reportedly. I haven't dive in it to see if that's that scenario, that narrative is actually true. Joe Biden comment: F Joe, when you coming over for dinner, CJ? That's a good question. I don't know. Anyone else notice that Biden looks like what Homelander of the boys would look like in 100 years? That's that guy. Yeah. So hi everyone. Let's see any other comments. Let me look more closely. What's up, ICJ? I call her Squidly Diddly. Yes, so you know her too. Biden has the power, but as CJ is saying, he did so in a bad way, easily attacked. We knew it would happen. We did. And we're going to get to the clip of the segment with Brianna Joy Gray in just a moment where she talks about it. But I'm first going to show you the tweet where she brings up like, hey, I talked about how this was going to happen. Where am I? So let me do that. So went through some of your tweets, but let's go to where's my bookmarks? I think I bookmarked it. Let's see. Oh, so this is some evidence for later. I wonder, did I bookmark that's for the Patrick Malone. I did not bookmark those, so let's go here. Let's go to Brianna Joy Gray. She tweeted it out, and this is no, it was not the first tweet I saw, but this was this tweet I saw where I saw the actual, where's the retweet? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to come back to these tweets that I'm passing up because these are the actual tweets where she posts the actual video clips of her talking about this. So let's read Brianna Joy Gray's tweet here, and I'll blow it up for anybody like myself. The CNN paired here. So here is Brianna Joy Gray, and let's move. Oops, that's why. All right, so let's read it. So they used the promise of student debt cancellation to induce young voter turnout, knowing it wasn't going anywhere because they relied on faulty legal authority. Like I said, this is not a Texas judge. He's just going by the corrupt laws on the books. This is the Democratic Party. This is Joe Biden. The sleight of hand making you think it's the Republicans that's doing this. It's not. Let's continue with the tweet. Hard to convince me the Biden administration didn't do this intentionally. I predicted it all here. And we're gonna go to that link and listen to some of that. But she quote tweeted Philip Lewis. Here's what you'll see on the webpage for federal student loan debt relief. And this is we talked about this earlier with the headline. Student loan debt relief is blocked. Courts have issued order blocking our student loan debt relief program. As a result, at the time, we are not accepting applications. We are seeking to overturn those orders. If you already applied, we'll hold your application. Subscribe and check back here for updates. And she posted here too. So we're going to check that out in just a moment. But let's look and see what some people said. So they're savvy, of course. She's always on top of things, especially student loan debt. Exactly. Let's retweet that from Sab. Let's here. Oh, wow. Let's listen. To those who insist on just blaming Republicans, if you hire a lawyer to represent you and they fail to plan and prepare for the absolute most obvious, predictable moves of the opposition, then you lost. You would blame your lawyer. The Republicans don't represent me. Dems supposed to. This is a fire ass fucking. This is a fire tweet right here. Let's do that. This is a Rebecca. I hope I'm saying that Bitten at Reb Benstein. Rebenstein? I don't know. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. But anyway, that's a spot on tweet. Spot on. And basically breaking down what I'm saying. How do you get around the courts though? You can't get around the courts. Oh, friend of the show, Bernie to the vest, Lauren. Funny how the courts didn't step in when rich people were getting their PPP loans forgiven. Another great tweet. Let's retweet that one. Let's see what this one is. Dessa. We haven't even seen the whole process play out. And if Dems maintain majorities, even small ones, it's possible that Congress can pass student loan relief and Biden sign it. And is there an issue with so many young people coming out to vote? It seems like you're implying there is an issue with young people coming out to vote when young people think they're getting their student loan debt canceled. Absolutely. There's a problem with tricking people to vote. Dessa. So let's go to the video. Oh, so let's back up and go to one of the videos she posted, and that Brianna being the she that I'm speaking about. So looks like she posted a little clip. So let's listen to this clip that she clipped out. And so we were gonna watch this clip that she clipped from her segment, from the actual full episode, or the full what's the right word? The full segment. We were gonna play the whole thing, but maybe this clip may be enough that cover what we were gonna play in that whole stream they did.
Cost of college
look,
problem.
I agree. You need to fix the cost of college problem. But look what happened to the Democrats who took that line, as opposed to the Democrats that supported Joe Biden's policy. Tim Ryan lost in Ohio. He came out strong against Joe Biden's student debt relief policy, saying that it was unfair to the people of Ohio to cancel debt for this population. And Cortez Masto, who was struggling to make up loss, coming up from behind, said that she disagreed with the White House's blanket forgiveness policy because it does not address the underlying issues with college affordability. She said, quote, "I don't agree with today's executive action because it doesn't address the root problems that make college affordable. We should be focusing on my legislation to expand Pell Grants for lower income students, et cetera, et cetera." Okay, I completely agree that there needs to be a more comprehensive approach here. But instead of saying yes and actually fighting for a more comprehensive approach and saying, if Democrats stay in power, this is what we're going to get, they naysayed, said no, painted themselves as enemies of the kinds of programs that really help a lot of struggling Americans. A huge number of people in her district, 11%, I believe, of her district have student loan. And I bet as she is trailing by such a small margin, she wishes some of those people had come out with her because of her enthusiasm.
But I guess the devil's advocate argument is there. I mean, you saw the polling for student debt forgiveness. Yes, maybe she would gain voters among young voters if she supported it, but theoretically could have lost people on the other side of that. I mean, we don't know.
The theoretical voter who was otherwise going to vote for the Democratic Senate candidate, but for their support of student debt cancellation.
I mean, that was the calculation they made, I guess.
And I think that the proof is in the pudding. And, her not, expecting not to come out on top probably in that race, and Tim Ryan's colossal failure tracking with low youth turnout shows that there are consequences. So Democrats and Republicans alike spend a lot of time pandering to homeowners, pandering to, frankly, people who are much more economically affluent, tax cuts that overwhelmingly benefit the rich. At the same time, they ignore working class population, students, and others that have been left behind. And I think this is a real moment for working people to realize that their votes matter, and that if they are able to leverage their vote and show that they're willing to turn out when they're actually given policies that benefit them, then they will get stuff in return. The only question now is whether or not Joe Biden will actually follow through on his promise to, in fact, cancel the $10,000 to $20,000 for the poorest Americans that he's promised to cancel.
What do you mean follow through? That's what he's doing.
Well, it's been held up in the courts.
Well, right, but he can't do anything about that.
Well, he could have immediately canceled student debt instead of making it a means-tested program, in which case there wouldn't have been these opportunities for people to obstruct. And
so it's the point is at the very end one of the points of how this was a weak strategy is that making it means tested is what gives somebody standing to even bring a lawsuit. If you wipe out all of it, that's equal for everybody. What standing does anybody have to sue? That's one of the points that's made about how this was a weak strategy, intentionally weak strategy, as Bree said in her tweet. But let's listen to this last, 9 seconds.
Tested program, in which case there wouldn't have been these opportunities for people to.
Oops, I didn't go back far enough. So hold on a second here. So let's go back to right about here. So we'll listen to the last 15 or 17 seconds.
$1 for the poorest Americans that he's promised to cancel.
What do you mean fall through? That's what he's doing.
Well, it's been held up in the courts.
Well, right, but he can't do anything about that.
Well, he could have immediately canceled student debt instead of making it a means-tested program, in which case there wouldn't have been these opportunities for people to obstruct. And that's what a lot of the student debt advocates have been saying, that he's basically set it up to give himself an out if he wants to. Now, it looks like there's a.
So she clipped out where she made the point. There's more points in the video, so maybe if we have time, we might still cover the longer video, but she makes the point there that the people on the ground for this were saying this seems like he's setting this shit up. And this now here's Bree saying Call did. Let me retweet her stuff here. Shout out Bree if you're watching. Bree says she watches us sometimes, so maybe she's watching this one. But Bree says she called it, and this looks like a clip. So let's go to that. This was posted September 12th. That's my sister's birthday. I think it's Rome's mom's birthday too, if I remember. So let's listen to the clip, but let's first read what Bree says here. Student debt Neil with Jed's. I'm sorry, let me see what it's read. I'm reading his other name. Anyway, is student debt cancellation even going to survive a legal challenge? This is in September. Okay, Bree tweeted this out, where people were already saying this, and this is a large law professor. His name is Jed Sugarman. That's a freaking dope ass name. Jed Sugarman. That is a name you would find in like Catcher in the Rye or something like that. But let's continue. But Fordham law professor Jed Sugarman argues the answer is no in a recent op-ed. So the answer is no to the question: is student debt cancellation even going to survive a legal challenge? And he wrote an op-ed in the Atlantic that said no. He explains on today's podcast, on today's Bad Faith, and this is from September 12th. Let's listen. That's Jed. Oh, I'm sorry. I think she spelled Sugarman, but it's Sugarman. It was spelled wrong in the tweet. So here we go.
I think the Biden administration could lose this 9-0. And instead of running against the Roberts court, thinking it's a win, I think it'll be an embarrassment that actually frustrates, that alienates the base, because it says you were incompetent. And that's my real concern here is I have to be, this experience of finding this problem has made me a little more cynical about what the goals are here. Is that
welcome to the club?
Well, yes. I mean, I wish I could say that I wasn't pessimistic when I wrote this piece, because the subtitle was optimistic. There's time to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
There is time to fix it. But I guess if there's anyone out there who's working in the Department of Education, and you left your job somewhere, you left your job in some other education department in some state, or you left a job in the private sector because you wanted to get things done, but you weren't so worried about getting a couple more purple state Democrats into some districts in 2022. If you want to listen to how to actually get student debt relief done, take one more year, get it done through the Higher Education Act, and you have a shot at it winning.
So to be clear, the Higher Education Act would allow the full scope of the $10,000 to $20,000 and for everybody under 125, like the plan that Biden set out now.
I mean, honestly, there's nothing in it that requires means testing.
Or more. Oh, yeah, like obviously I want the whole shebang. So that's another reason to want to pursue that route for those of us who are still holding out for full debt cancellation.
That's right. Brianna, I've got a lot of progressives wrote to me privately or said there were a lot of progressives who were mad that I was saying this. Like I had some secret that wait, you think that there isn't a conservative lawyer who already saw all this, but they don't want to write it in the Atlantic because they're holding on to it. The conservatives are probably mad that I'm suggesting the Higher Education Act, but progressives said thank you.
So this Jed and he's saying basically other lawyers could see this, and conservative lawyers obviously saw this opening for this. He's from the Fordham law firm, Jed. Let me see if I can quickly find the article at Atlantic. And his name is Jed Sugarman. I think that was it. Something like that. Okay, here we go. Biden's rescue plan is a legal mess. I believe this is it. It was written September 4th, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Let me just wait for it to open. So if you want to go look at this, I guess I can put this in there. So let's, where is it? Let's go here, and then we're going to come back to this. So here is the article that he wrote. So if you want to go check it out, it's at the Atlantic, and here is the title. Biden's student debt rescue plan is a legal mess. This is back in September. The good news is that there's still time to fix it, by Jed Sugarman. So it was spelled wrong in 2 instances, I think. Yeah. But anyway, there's a C in the video on YouTube. There's a C in there. But on this Atlantic piece, there is no C. So anyway, so I hope I'm spelling it. There's a variation of it. So Sugarman, not sure of the correct spelling, but I'm assuming that Atlantic has the correct spelling. Let's read just a very small section of it and see what this op-ed says here. Let's see if I can make this bigger. You know how I like it. Very big. Okay, so let's go to the beginning here. Here we go. The Biden administration's recently announced plan to reduce student loan for borrowers who earn less than $125,000 is popular, according to recent polls. Unfortunately, the plan has a major legal flaw. The administration's arguments for its executive power to make such a broad effort under federal law will likely lose and should lose in the courts. The good news for President Joe Biden and for borrowers is that the administration has time to change those arguments. This is September 4th. September 4th and right around September 12th, Bree uploads a video or a episode of her Bad Faith podcast and brings on this person, the author of this piece from the Fordham law firm. And it sounds like he's progressive. He's talked about other progressives reaching out to him. So if he says other progressives, that to me would imply he's saying he's a progressive to say others. He's saying it should be stricken down in the way that it's being done. And he also says there's good news because it can be fixed if it's done the right way. But let's read this last part. The administration's argument for its executive power to make such a broad effort under federal law will likely lose and should lose in courts. A progressive said that. Now, let's continue. In conjunction with the announcement of the program, the Office of Legal Counsel at the Department of Justice issued a memo explaining the legal basis for it, the COVID-19 emergency. And then, do you think, let me pause here. I'm wondering now, this is just a thought. Do you think him publicly announcing that COVID is over was part of this feeble attempt to make people believe that student loan debt was going to be canceled when you know it's not? Because if you're doing it under the COVID emergency, but then you go out and say COVID is over, just saying, there could be a connection. I don't know. Let's continue. Unfortunately, no evidence has emerged that the Biden administration is tailoring the program to fit this justification, nor has Biden and his team offered any sign that they are taking seriously the Supreme Court recent administrative law ruling or its clear skepticism about invoking the COVID-19 emergency as a reason for any far-reaching government policy. Meaning, using this as a reason is flimsy at best. This is September 4th, okay? Before the challenges, legal challenges are inevitable. Private bank administrators, many of these administer many of these loans, and they will incur millions in losses when the debts are canceled, meaning that those banks would have standing in federal courts. State programs may also be concretely affected, and such states also are likely to sue. These plaintiffs will probably prevail unless the Department of Education narrows the plan's scope and relies on a different statute when it finalizes the policy. So this is why I'm calling this, or this is why I believe this is a scam. This is the student debt, Joe Biden student debt forgiveness scam. And people on Twitter, I read one of them, already is figuring this out. Like, this sounds pretty fishy here. But the narrative that's getting out is that it's Republicans and some Texas judge. And you saw in this op-ed, this progressive lawyer said, no, this should be stricken down in the manner that they're trying to do this. And it's giving a better, more suitable option that would be more sturdy up against any challenge. But if that's not what you want to do, you want to set up a house of cards because you want the house of cards to fall down. They have the same donors. Couple of comments, and then we'll go. Where's that video at? Yeah, I have the video queued up. Actually, let's bring it into this window instead of a separate window here. So let's go to YouTube and the video with Bree and Jed. Let's mute this because it's probably going to pop on while I'm not looking at it here. Where am I? Oh, we're going to go to comments. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to let that play and fully open. I'm gonna put up some of your comments. I'm curious to see what everybody is thinking. Say it like I'm real angry. Oops. Carrot on a stick, like Roe v. Wade. Absolutely. Spot on comment. Thank you for the comment. Democrats, we're arm twisting more. We're arm twisting more than usual than the usual election cycle. Young voters bought their bullshit. They put up the House of Cards looked very nice. It looked like a very nice, Barbie house playset. It didn't look like a House of Cards. So young people believed it. They said, hey, he canceled some of my debt. Let's go out and make sure he wins. We can at least take a couple hours out of our day to go do that. Not knowing this motherfucker set this shit up to fall down the whole time. The executives at banks are evil and they have inordinate control over the government. Can we acknowledge these two facts? I think most of us can, at least that are here. Gen Z needs to vote third party next time. I don't know how many times you can keep, pulling the rug from somebody, pulling the chair as they're trying to sit down. Before somebody finally jumps off of that, jumps out of that formula. They fell for it this time, the students. Will they fall for it again in 2024? People have a short memory. Americans have a short memory politically. It's almost by design, but when so much is going wrong in capitalism and is falling and collapsing, there's so many distractions, in other words. Why does it drop after the election? Typically Democrats can games. Thank you. The clip seemed to be from when Virgil was still co-hosting with Bree. So from a couple years ago. No. This is not from a couple years ago. I can tell you right now the date. Let me see. It has a date listed here. Oh, I said, remember September. This was posted September of this year. Yeah, I forgot. Because I just went back to look at the date on the comments. And yeah, it's a couple months ago. So, yeah. All right, so let's broaden this. We're going to pause it and get this queued up. We're going to listen to maybe about 7 minutes of it and see what more he delves into about this obvious scam by the Biden administration. But it worked. It worked. So let's get back to, or let's get to this video where Bree is interviewing Jed. And then we're going to watch about 5 minutes of another clip from when she was on Ryzen, when she was calling this out. Not the one where we played when she was in red. Anyway, you'll see. I played so many clips of her. You may not even know what I'm saying here. Where are we? We are currently at 255 likes. Thank you for hitting that target. Can we push to 300? We have 342 people watching. Let's push to 300. And that probably will get us to about 400 people watching and some more people in the chat. So like this video. Let's push to 300 likes. Thank you. Let's get back to the topic: student loan or student debt forgiveness scam by the Biden administration. And this video is titled "Biden's Debt Cancellation is Likely to Fail." This was months ago.
This brings me still back to the question of whether if they had tried to just do full cancellation at the beginning of or in the middle of the emergency. I say in the middle only because Biden wasn't there at the beginning of the emergency. Would that have made a difference in terms of the legal argument?
Well, first of all, yeah, I think it may have we're not. That's not where we are now. But
right. Well, I'm only asking, and this isn't your area, but I'm asking because I'm thinking about the political question. And the next interview I do with Ro Khanna or whatever other progressive congressperson is willing to come on the show is, was anybody thinking about this, and why weren't you pushing for full debt cancellation when we here on the left have been clamoring about this since the dawn of the era? Yeah.
So,
but go ahead, please.
Frankly, there are a few points to make. Ro Khanna is a friend of mine from law school. We started.
Oh, really?
We were together in class, and he's wonderful. I love Ro.
You gotta poke Ro for us, Jed, because we appreciate that he's.
Well, so let me say, there's a lot to say about this. Is as much about politics as it is about policy, to be honest with you, right? I mean, but let me talk about the law first, and then we can also talk about the politics second. The issue is with this pretext point is that the further you get away from COVID, the further you get away from the COVID being the real reason, and then the real reason being structural. And once the program is announced to be so sweeping, it actually relates to that structural point. It's no longer about COVID anymore, right? So I'll give you one reason why conservative lawyers will have an easy time making this argument about pretext. Joe Biden's speech himself on the week that the policy was announced, his speech is rightly he talks about the long-term problems of tuition in America. And only once there's one throwaway line about, hey, the Biden administration, our administration has dealt with COVID in this way, and we're going to also deal with this problem. That's the but the rest of the speech was right. The rest of the speech was right about the social problem. If I'm a lawyer who is going to litigate, if I'm if I'm working with Ted Cruz, I'm collecting all of the speeches that Biden and other Democrats have given about the problem of education finance. And that's the real reason. And here's, Brianna, you may remember the case about the census it's called New York.
You hear what he's saying? You're filing this under COVID, but then you're going out publicly saying how there's another reason. You see? That's the point that he's making. That's why he's saying, I will be recording all of these speeches. And Biden going out saying COVID is over publicly. Why does he need to say that? Unless he's intentionally setting a trail for the opposite side to have evidence for a court case. These people, you think you can't get any lower. Let's continue.
All of the speeches that Biden.
So I'm gonna let him make this point again, and then we'll continue.
That's the but the rest of the speech was right. The rest of the speech was right about the social problem. If I'm a lawyer who is going to litigate, if I'm Ted Cruz's, if I'm working with Ted Cruz, I'm collecting all of the speeches that Biden and other Democrats have given about the problem of education finance. And that's the real reason. And here's, Brianna, you may remember the case about the census it's called New York versus the Department of Commerce. And Roberts was leaning with the conservatives to allow the census to include the Trump administration and his Commerce Department to ask people their citizenship. Now, we all knew what the real reason for that was. But the the Trump administration made all kinds of pretextual bad faith on the bad faith. It's good we're talking about bad faith because the Trump administration made bad faith arguments about, it's another podcast that jokes always about, it was going to help us enforce the Voting Rights Act. I mean, no one bought that, but that's what they put on paper. And then it gets to the Roberts court and then it turns out it's clear Roberts is going to vote with the 5 justices to allow it. And the estranged daughter of the architect of this policy finds after the architect dies, this Republican activist, she goes into the hard drive and finds emails that say the reason to ask citizenship is shockingly because it will diminish the amount of Latinos and Latinas who are going to answer the question, and it will water down Democratic votes.
Yeah.
And then when this came out in the middle of litigation, like in the middle of the Supreme Court, deliberation, this came out. Roberts changed his vote, and with 4 liberals, the argument was not because this was racist, but because it was a pretext.
Right.
It was a political pretext. But it wasn't just politics. It was.
So you see the point example he's given, how another court struck down another president's thing? Because you're saying one thing, you're telling us this is why you're doing it, but you're publicly doing this, and everywhere else you're saying something else. So either Joe Biden is as stupid as the Donald Trump administration, or this was intentional. That makes this a scam to get votes. These people will do anything. Let's listen some more.
It was that in order for executive action to be sustained under something called the Administrative Procedure Act, technical, but
take
it's
me back. Take me back to what else?
Right. Okay. So the most fundamental rule about executive action under this statute is action cannot be arbitrary or capricious. And basically, just 3 years ago, the Kagan, Sotomayor, and Roberts himself said, if you're giving fake reasons, if you're giving pretext reasons, the policy is arbitrary. Mm-hmm. So so I'm not just worried, Brianna, that this could lose the 6 conservatives on the court. I'm frankly worried that when Kagan gets this, it doesn't pass the smell test. Right. So that's okay. So that's one.
I mean, he makes the point. I think we can stop this video here. He makes the point. You're telling us it's COVID, but then you're messaging to everybody because you need to get credit and get people to vote. You're telling everybody something else when you're in public. And he's saying this is so bad that he doesn't even think just the conservative judges would strike this down, that the progressive ones would too. So this was way before this actually happened last night. All right, so I found, or Bree actually put this video up about an hour ago, so I didn't see it earlier. So let's get this here. We're going to put this in the window. So we got a little more from that episode where Jed is calling it out. He's saying this is obviously a joke. So let's listen to. Now, this is believe the video I was going to show. I was going to go to this radar and watch the full radar, just like earlier. She posted a clip from a video I was going to go to originally. So let's listen and see if she clipped the part that was specific. Now, what she puts in the caption here, she says, did Biden rig, and she capitalizes it, student debt forgiveness to fail just to help him in the midterms? I asked this question a month ago on Hill TV. Watch the clip, and it's the full thing, and we may go and watch a little bit, but this is a 4-minute clip, so it may contain everything that we need in this clip. Thanks, Bree, for posting this. So let's play.
This issue was debated in a Washington Post column last week. Harvard professor Lawrence Tribe affirmed that the White House is on safe legal footing, citing the HEROES Act of 2003 as a legislative hook that grants Biden executive authority to cancel student debt. But the HEROES Act is a post-9/11 law that allows the president to suspend or cancel debt in a national emergency. Whether or not COVID still qualifies as an ongoing emergency is a hotly debated topic, with conservatives and Biden supporters alike aligning on a desire to put the pandemic behind them. The former due to concerns about CDC overreach and politicization of COVID, and the latter for political reasons. Biden fares better in midterms if he can claim to have resolved the crisis. Of course, we are still technically, legally, in a declared state of COVID emergency. But given how the Supreme Court, the conservative Supreme Court, has ruled on COVID-related policies like mask mandates and the eviction moratorium, some are skeptical that they would uphold an executive order that depends on COVID being characterized as an ongoing crisis. I spoke to law professor Jed Sugarman, who took a skeptical view of Biden's legal standing in the Washington Post article on my own podcast, Bad Faith, on Monday, and he offered some more clarity. Both on bad faith and in a piece he wrote in The Atlantic last week, Sugarman argued that Biden should rely on the Higher Education Act of 1965 instead of the HEROES Act as a hook for his executive authority. Now, the language in the 1965 Act does not rely on COVID and aligns much better with Biden's own justifications for student debt relief, in which he has barely referenced.
Wait, did y'all see Bree screen recorded? Did you see the Instagram notification that popped down a second right there? Oh, so she was watching on her phone and she screen recorded. Okay, so let's play. I was like, wait a minute, I'm getting notified of Instagram on my computer, but that was on her phone. All right.
Education Act of 1965 instead of the HEROES Act as a hook for his executive authority. Now, the language in the 1965 Act does not rely on COVID and aligns much better with Biden's own justifications for student debt relief, in which he has barely referenced COVID as a cause. The 1965 Act allows the Department of Education to, quote, enforce, pay, compromise, waive, or release any right, title, claim, lien, or demand, however acquired, including any equity or any right of redemption. Now, that language is squarely on point for Biden's debt relief plan. And it's no surprise, the 1965 Act was explicitly intended to resolve the kinds of education crises that predated the pandemic, and which Biden has rightly cited as the reason why student debt cancellation is needed. So why, some progressives are now asking, would Biden choose a less applicable statute that relies on a justification likely to rankle not only Supreme Court justices who are conservative, but liberal justices as well, in Jed's view? Well, this is the point at which this conversation...
Because he wants it to collapse. Again, he has the same donors. The Democratic Party has the same donors as the Republican Party. So all they did was to devise a plan to get to the same conclusion that the Republicans are verbally saying publicly aloud.
Tips into some speculation. One cynical argument is that Joe Biden wants to exploit the goodwill of young voters and older voters too to carry Democrats through midterms, knowing that he'll never have to make good on his promise of partial debt cancellation. Similar arguments were put forward to explain why the Democrats seemed to cave to Cori Bush's protests on the Capitol steps to extend the eviction moratorium last summer. Some have opined that the Democrats only bent the knee to Cori Bush because they knew the courts would overturn the eviction moratorium immediately after Bush's so-called win. Is Biden similarly hoping?
Now we know why they just let that happen, because they could protest for a number of things. Why were they allowed to protest for this item? Like I said, these people are all lawyers. You don't think they knew what was going to happen? So Bree called it, and Jed called it also. And it sounds like many people called it like, this looks pretty flimsy. Why would you do this if you really wanted? Why would you do it this way if you really wanted to accomplish forgiving student loan debt?
To be able to hide behind the courts. One other theory Professor Sugarman and I discussed on Bad Faith was whether Biden is worried that the authority granted under the Higher Education Act of 1965 is actually too broad for his narrow incrementalist agenda. Sugarman argued that Biden would have a tough time canceling all student debt under the HEROES Act. In fact, Sugarman wonders if Biden might have to narrow the debt relief he's already promised to make it so that it's tailored to those who can prove they were actually affected by COVID. And I want to be clear here that this is by no means confirmed. I also spoke to Sparky Abraham from the Debt Collective, who's been a guest here on Rising, on my Collins show on Monday. And he offered some strong pushback to Sugarman's theories, which people should definitely take with a grain of salt. Sparky's view is that Biden's policy actually does pass muster under the HEROES Act and won't need to be narrowed at all. But what's clear, even in Sparky's own observation,
That's unfortunate that you believed it,
is that the Higher Education Act of 1965 grants much broader authority to enact much more comprehensive relief. And a very cynical view of Joe Biden might see his choice to use the HEROES rather than the Education Act as a reflection of his unwillingness to open himself up to political pressure.
Great clip from Bree. Shout out Bree. Thanks, Bree, for the clip or being able to use the clip for the segment. This is a scam. And I hope more and more people are gonna when they hear the details, they're gonna understand, like, wait a minute, let's not blame this Texas judge. Because any judge with a law degree would strike this down. The proof or the example or the, I guess you can say proof, the evidence is in them saying that he thought that both progressive and right-leaning Supreme Court judges would strike this down. Biden's going out saying that COVID is over. All of these things just don't seem like a coincidence. Not to me. They don't seem like a coincidence, but I think we're going to leave it there for the student debt forgiveness scam segment. And we're going to move to the next segment, which is, and I think we're just going to have to kind of put these together because there's so many overlapping points, but it's Maloney blames AOC, and AOC blames NY Dem leadership. I'll just say NY Dems. So they kind of have a lot of overlapping. So it's kind of going to be together, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. So, but first, of course, let's do our short little 2-minute break to do in between segments to do a check of the chat and kind of like round up all the last comments of the last segment before we start this next segment, and also do a where is it? A like check. We're at 312. Thank you for hitting that target. And as you can see, the number of viewers keep going up as you keep liking and liking and liking. So let's push to 350 likes. 350 likes. 350 likes. Let's push there for our next target. And I'm looking. Okay, now I'm on the right page. I think we're going to start with this video. Yeah, we need to start with like a starting point. So let's start with this video here, YouTube, to kind of set the groundwork for the discussion. Let's pause it here. It's a local news clip that we're going to be talking about for this next. But let's like the stream. Let's get to 350 likes. Also, if you're watching this on replay or if you're just getting here after, 70 minutes into the stream, you're just arriving and you wish you were here for the earlier segment, if you join our Substack, you'll get notifications of when we go live, and also when we upload clips, we will send out notifications. So join our Substack for that. You'll get an email, and it'll be the video directly in your email. You can watch it from your email. And this is where we started at today, 25,369. If you're brand new, please subscribe. If you're brand new watching, please subscribe. If you think you're subscribed, make sure you double check. Now let's get back to the show. You left shit out. Again, I'm your host, CJ. We're gonna move to the AOC blames DEMS, and Maloney blames AOC. But I guess we'll start out with this banner because you gotta kind of start here in order to understand the chronological order of the story. So let's start here with this 2-minute news clip of Sean Patrick Maloney.
We're going to begin with the election and a big night for Kathy Hochul.
She made history becoming the first woman elected governor of the Empire State. We're going to have more on her big win coming up, including the tough agenda she now faces. But first, breaking news. A victory in the Hudson Valley for Republicans trying to wrestle control of the House of Representatives. In just the last hour, Democratic Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney conceded the race to Republican Assemblyman Mike Lawler. CBS 2's Tony Aiello in Nyack with the late details. Tony.
Mary, the day before the election, Sean Patrick Maloney told me he was confident he would win. The day after the election, truly a painful loss for Sean Patrick.
Let's pause there. Forgot I was supposed to go to comments first, so I could see the comments jumped up. So sorry. Let's go to comments. How do I join the Substack? When you go to that link here, you just enter I think it asks for your email and like a name, and that's it. So it's like 2 or 3 slots, name and email. So thank you for the question. Let's continue with some more comments here. Sorry about that, everybody. I forgot we were supposed to do this. There are no good lawyers. We were speaking about the Congress being filled with lawyers. Summer Lee did win, and we covered Summer Lee in our stream yesterday titled The Squad Expands. So please go over and check that video out. It's called The Squad Expands. We just did it yesterday. Gloria was an excellent candidate. They're talking about for the PLS. Let's continue with any other comments, any new comments here. All right, so now doesn't look like, so let's, you guys are having great conversations in the chat. Looks like Democrats lost big in California and New York. That's a huge indicator for 2024. That is a great point. Thank you for the comment. So let's get back to the video. I will start it from the point of Sean Patrick Maloney. So let's start over. And so that I can clip this, let me put this up and start it the right way here. Sean Patrick Maloney blames AOC for his loss. And let's listen to this local news station talk about his loss.
A victory in the Hudson Valley for Republicans trying to wrestle control of the House of Representatives. In just the last hour, Democratic Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney conceded the race to Republican Assemblyman Mike Lawler. CBS 2's Tony Aiello in Nyack with the late details. Tony.
Mary, the day before the election, Sean Patrick Maloney told me he was confident he would win. The day after the election, truly a painful loss for Sean Patrick Maloney. He chaired the effort to keep the House in Democrats' hands, but he loses his own seat. Maloney finding a silver lining because Democrats do appear to have done far better nationwide than expected, holding off that anticipated red wave. Maloney spoke 30 minutes ago at Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee headquarters in D.C., shortly after calling Mike Lawler to congratulate the Republican on his victory.
So I'm deeply grateful to the people of the Hudson Valley for giving me their voice and their vote in Washington for 10 years. I'm not going to whine about it. I'm gonna do this the right way, and the right thing to do is to say the other guy won, to wish him well, and to pledge my support.
Doesn't it sound like he's telling himself this? Doesn't it feel like he's saying the right thing to do, Sean, is to do this, and that's what I'm doing? It feels like he's not telling us, he's telling himself. I'll rewind it just a little bit here.
For 10 years. Not going to whine about it. I'm gonna do this the right way, and the right thing to do is to say the other guy won, to wish him well and to pledge my support. And that's what I'm doing.
Mike Lawler is a first-term assemblyman who took advantage of redistricting, which added his base in Rockland County to this newly drawn.
So redistricting, remember that, because that is key in all of this story. And this story, redistricting is going to be prevalent in this segment, in the next segment.
17th Congressional District. Lawler hammered Maloney on crime, inflation, and energy costs. Lawler's win is a real bright spot for Republicans who love the symbolism of Nancy Pelosi acolyte Sean Maloney losing while Maloney was in charge of Democratic efforts to hold the House. Mike Lawler will speak to reporters at 2 this afternoon in New City. In Nyack, Rockland County.
Just
Tony
rubbing
Aiello,
it in.
CBS
Just Tony Aiello. Wow, his name is Tony Aiello. Is that what he said? That's a famous guy from the old school. Oh, yeah, that's his name. Tony Aiello.
County. Tony Aiello, CBS 2 News.
Okay, Tony.
Right on. All right, so that's the news. He lost, but let's go to this more interesting clip. This is when he went on Morning Joe. And Morning Joe tries to spin this loss that Sean took and spin a lot of things. So let's listen to the clip. This is a very
right now.
This is a very interesting clip here. Like Nick and I covered yesterday, Joe Scarborough is one of the best propagandists. So let's listen to this clip.
Now let's bring in right now the chairman of the DCCC, Democrat and Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney of New York. I would say two things can be true at one time. The chairman had a great night. In fact, a historic night. You can go back and look.
You think he's being sarcastic, and it feels like Sean thought he was being sarcastic too. But he wasn't referring to his personal race. He was referring to him in the position as the head of these DCCC. That's what he was saying. He had a good night. But he clearly thought that Joe was talking about him and being sarcastic. So let's play that again, and you can see what I mean.
Maloney of New York, I would say two things can be true at one time. The chairman had a great night. In fact, a historic night. You can go back and look at midterms going all the way back to JFK. And nobody in your position had as great a night as you did in an off-year election when Democrats were in power. Of course, there's also the other side of it where you lost your race. But I'm wondering if you're thinking what I'm thinking when I heard the news, which is you got Republicans to train so much fire on you as far as political fire.
You see, oh, he's trying to make it seem like he went in and took all the fire. Like he's like he took all the incoming fire from the Republicans. He was the shield that let everybody else get elected. That's what Joe Scarborough is trying to do here.
$6 million, $7 million, $8 million to try to take you, just one person out because it was more, 10 million, whatever it was. Okay, if they hadn't spent that money on you, they would have spent it on about 10 other candidates, and they probably would have had a much better night. So actually, you helped your caucus in about 1 million different ways.
Well, that's generous. But I will accept the kind words on behalf of the candidates who worked their heart out. I mean, blood, sweat, and tears for 2 years. And if we did better than anybody expected, it's because we have a good president, ladies and gentlemen, and a rock star in the Speaker of the House who delivered an economic agenda and a democracy agenda that has really moved our country back from the madness and insanity of the pandemic.
So in his face, he was clearly upset and he was holding back because he realized, wait a minute, there's many people that have come back. So let me go ahead and make sure I pay homage to all of the managerial, the managers in leadership right now. So he shouts out Joe Biden and then he shouts out the speaker. That's what he's doing. That's for future.
In the Trump years.
I understand. We have a picture of Nancy and you here. I understand Nancy reached out to you and thanked you for taking an arrow for Democrats. And
you see him trying to spin it that way, like he took the incoming infire so everybody else can win.
For defending them the way you did and helping them have such a great night.
Yeah, well, before you carved me in marble, I lost my seat, and I wish it was up on that projection of yours, because right now, as we sit here, no one can tell you with certainty who holds the majority in the House of Representatives. The fact that we're talking about that should give everybody a little bit of humility in the press who wrote us off for 2 years. Yeah. And I am concerned that a bunch of Democrats might have listened to you, because the fact is that we were always going to be competitive because we had such great candidates and such great leadership in the speaker and in the president. And I'm telling you right now, I agree with your projection. It might be a little low. And when you consider that, we started with 220 in their seats, a couple of vacancies, 30 people walking out the door. Yeah. And so about 185 or so people who were trying to come back.
Well, and the redistricting.
Well, thank you for mentioning it. And
like I said, redistricting is the story throughout these two segments I'm doing. AOC blames NY or New York State Democrats, and Maloney blames AOC for his loss. Both of these stories is around redistricting. So I guess let me kind of walk you through it. So if I get out of order, at least I can tell you what the story is. So let me walk you through sort of the story. So Cuomo is governor. State law has them sort of create some sort of commission. He puts half Democrats, half Republicans on there to come up to draw the lines, the new lines, right? And they can't come to a decision. So this other entity or this nonpartisan entity draws the lines. It's a court case. Anyway, gerrymandering is attempted by the Democratic Party. It fails. Because gerrymandering fails, the districts aren't gerrymandered in Democrats' favor. So that kind of ties to the New York Democratic Party, right? New York State Democratic Party, the gerrymandering part. Now, where Sean Patrick Maloney jumps in, so the redistricting happened. And remember, there was a story, Sean Patrick Maloney chooses to run in a different district, a new redesigned district, not new, but a different district that has been redesigned, but Mondaire Jones is supposed to be running. So the head of the DCCC, Sean Patrick Maloney, sort of Bigfoots his way into Mondaire Jones's district, basically ensuring that one or multiple progressives are going to lose, Mondaire Jones and then a couple of other progressives. AOC, the leading progressive or one of the leading progressives, endorses Sean Patrick Maloney's challenger. Not Sean Patrick Maloney's, but Sean Patrick Maloney's challenger. Mondaire Jones and the other progressives, they run in some other district. They both lose. The corporate Democrat wins. They both, run in the same. So it's two progressives and the corporate Democrat. The corporate Democrat wins. So because of the gerrymandering, the because of failed Democratic gerrymandering, the GOP picks up 4 seats in this midterm. This is where it goes back to now. AOC is mad at the New York Democratic State Party and the leadership there because they allowed these 4 seats to flip, and it goes back to them and the decision making that was done about the redistricting. So I hope that all makes sense, because the next videos, they may not be specifically in order, but that is the story line of what's happening. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let me check to see if anybody's saying that's dumb. Okay, so it looks like nobody's saying this is crazy. Right. So now it took me a while to kind of be like, this is some bullshit, to figure this out. Not figure it out, but kind of just, get the stories in their order. So, all right. So now let's listen to a little more here, and then we're going to go to Cenk's tweet and some other tweets of progressives calling out Sean Patrick Maloney for sort of blaming AOC.
And I think that, yeah, you lose probably 3 to 5. I think it's fairly probably just out of redistricting. So if you go from low 180s to 215 with the headwinds we had, I just want people to be clear. This wasn't some high pressure system that moved in and blew the clouds of the MAGA movement away. This was because there were Democrats who believed in this, our volunteers, our donors, our candidates, my goodness. And I am so proud of that effort. And I wish more people had believed in it. I wish a few of those Democrats had stayed. I wish we had, I really feel personally responsible that we didn't deliver the majority. We're going to come darn close. But I always believed it was possible. There's still a narrow path. And I want people to understand this is a work day for me and for the Democrats in the House. We are not done. A lot of these people ended the election on Tuesday night. Right. We are still making sure every legal vote is counted. We are in court. We are around the country. We are curing absentee ballots. We have easily 24 races where it still really matters that we work at this. And we are not going to let them steal a single seat. I can tell you that.
So Claire, obviously, you've been through this extraordinarily difficult situation. At the same time, we're not carving Sean up marble. It's just speaking the truth to say the Tuesday night was a historic night for a party in power. I've never seen. Dave Wasserman says he's never seen anything like it. I know in my lifetime, I have never seen a party, including 2002. And
young people helped do that based off this faulty bullshit as student loan forgiveness scam. So all of these segments are sort of connected, and there's that connection.
It did as well as the Democrats did when they were in power, when they owned Washington.
Yeah, I mean, I will. First of all, I'll tell you from experience, it's great out here. This is not the end of the world. I promise you.
She lost, and she's saying it's great out here on the outside. That's what she's saying to him.
Wait, can I ask you something? I've heard
she's terrible too.
There's this day between Friday and Monday when people don't work. Is that true?
It's true. It is actually. You have no idea how hard you've been working.
There's this day between Friday and Monday where people don't work. These people act like they work. So let's go to Cenk's tweet. Let's go to his tweet. I think I have it. But it's a lot. I'm going to go to my bookmarks first to sort of bring up some other tweets, and then we'll go specifically to Cenk's tweet. Actually, I may have it here. I have it here. So we can start with Cenk. I have other ones, but since Cenk's was at the top, we can start with him. So Cenk chimed in on this, and this is sort of how I started to hear more. I start to say, okay, let me see what this story is about. So this was last night. All right, I said that earlier in the stream. All right, so let's read what is said here. So Sean Patrick Malone blames AOC for not helping to keep the House. First of all, that was literally your job as head of DCCC. Second, so here is Jank playing Captain Save a Politician again. He does this a lot, and a lot in the professional managerial class do this, where they play this Captain Save, a politician. Let's put this up on the screen here. So here is superhero Captain Save a Politician. I think I spelled it right. Jank. Let's continue. Second, you literally tried to steal another Democrat's seat and failed. Corporate Democrats love to blame progressives for their own failures. Now, I must say, I'm sure there's progressives like Mondaire Jones that is loving this loss by Sean Patrick Maloney. I'm sure there's progressives, probably Jane, probably Anna, that's loving it because he is pretty despised by progressives. They all kind of came out and did videos of him when he did that to Mondaire Jones. So let's see. Any interesting comments from people? I know, maybe not, but let's see. Okay, so let's go to some other comments. That's me. I can just go to my bookmark and see that. So let's go. So that's that one from Jank. Then let's go to some other ones. So let's read this one. It says Minnesota and Michigan won trifectas and immediately put Democratic Socialists on their leadership team. Sean Patrick Maloney lost a race that he bullied his way into running for, and he's crying in the press about AOC. Democratic socialism is the future of the Democratic Party. So he goes on about some other things, but I guess let me see if he talks about Sean Patrick Maloney. He does not. Let's go to some other. And I was just retweeting a lot of these, quote tweeting these, I should say, because I was interested in what the discourse was in this progressive world. This is a big thing that's happening. This sort of infighting is happening in the progressive world. So here is another comment. Sean Patrick Maloney whining about AOC is a Biden plus district in a Biden plus district, while Jared Golden comfortably carries a Trump plus district while supporting Medicare for all. So let's go to another one. Let's see how many I got. I think this might. Oh, and then let's see if that Times article. So this one here, Hannah Trudeau. I think she is a reporter for The Hill. I talked informally to Sean Patrick Maloney for quite a while on the night of the Congressional Correspondent Dinner. He was very harsh towards progressives, which tracks with his latest comments in New York Times about AOC. Stunning to see this all being aired publicly. Wow. I did not see AOC's comment, so let's see AOC's comment here. Okay. All right, so there's a lot. So let me go to this comment that she quotes tweets. Now, I was going to go to this article, but I need to go to the comment first so we can see, sort of put this in order here. So Sean Patrick Maloney on soon-to-be former colleague AOC. So this person just posted, senior reporter CNN. So this is a reporter that posted this. This is a quote from this article, New York Times. Sean Patrick Maloney on his loss, the media and AOC. I mean, that is tears. Losing power. You see the face of losing power for these people? The last time I ran, this is a quote from the article, quote, the last time I ran into AOC, we were beating her endorsed candidate. He's talking about how she endorsed the other person. We were beating her endorsed candidate 2-1 in a primary, and I didn't see her 1 minute of these midterms helping our House majority, end quote. So he ain't fucking around. He's out of the he got voted out, so he's like, fuck this shit. I'm gonna say what I want to say, and he goes and has this op-ed, and we'll see if I'll have access to it in just a moment. But now let's now see this. So this is what AOC is quote tweeting. So this is her response. Wow. So this is some drama here. AOC, let's make something crystal clear. SPM, Sean Patrick Maloney, courted me for donations to swing races, and it was the first thing I did this term. Over $250,000 for DEMS this cycle. Some of that went to CIA Democrats. Great. DCCC facilitated some, and now he denies it. And this is the second point she makes. If he isn't aware of my visit to California and efforts we put in, that's on him. She's talking. Now, she's playing coy because she knows he's talking about New York. And she doesn't mention my visits to campaigning in New York. She doesn't mention that in this tweet. Let's see if she does in the next part. Maybe she does here. And this is another point. Because of Democratic Party abandonment in key areas, statewide victories depended heavily on driving up numbers in progressive areas like mine, and I think she lists this other person, New York working families. And then here's another point she makes. To our knowledge, I was the only NYC House Dem in a safe seat to run a full-throated, heavily field operation for GOVTV. And she continues. Wow. So obviously this op-ed got her heated. Because this is a threat. Oh, goodness. She got, okay. So it's several. So we're on this one, I think. Yeah. So let's just go down. What I love about this claim that we gave frontline members donations, that we gave frontline members, quote, donations they didn't want, end quote. A, the vast majority were good with early financial support to position themselves early. B, for the few who didn't want our help plus got it, where did you think we got the money info to give? DCCC. She continues in the thread. As for him, quote, not seeing me, perhaps it's because he, as a party leader, chose not to see nor value prominent members of his party for years. So this is so she's pointing out this is not just this. Either way, we will continue to organize and turn out undervalued plus underseen communities in this country, whether the powerful like it or not. Lastly, my moderate Dems plus leaders made it very clear that our help was not welcome nor wanted. Despite our many, many offers, yet found ways to try to help from afar. So for them to blame us for respecting their approach in their districts is laughable. Take ownership. I feel like it should be bro there. Take ownership, bro. That's what I feel like. So that's AOC's response to all of this. I'm assuming this is the only response that was given by AOC. I don't see any other notable quote tweets that we need to include on this. This is wildly public inside baseball, and that's Mike Handy. Adam Baldwin, as crystal clear as Stooge, Swatwell's CCP sweet nothing tweets. Not sure. Anyway, we'll go on. Derek Hunter, she's just the worst person. I love it. Benjamin Ryan, AOC rips Sean Patrick Maloney a new one in response. So now let's go to the actual article. And this is where we're going to start to kind of mesh the other topic of AOC blaming leadership in the New York Democratic Party in New York. So to kind of start to overlap here. Okay, so let me bring up the article. Can I just oops, I did not mean to do that. So let's close it. All right, so let me go back. Sorry. Can I copy link to address? Now let's see if that'll do it. All right, so let's see if this brings up. I don't know if I have access to New York Times. So far, so good. Let's see when I scroll down if anything pops up here. All right, so it looks like I will be able to read. Oh, I spoke too soon. I spoke too soon, people. Continue reading. What? I spoke too soon, so it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to read all of it. Continue. Yeah, so that information looks like it's blocked. But maybe somebody has it clipped somewhere, and so far it's not. For representative, the results of this week's midterm. Okay, so I was just about to read some of it. Anyway, let's see if we can find this information somewhere else. So let's go to DuckDuckGo. Sometimes you know how other outlets will like rewrite or repost the original outlet's article. So let's see. Sean Patrick Maloney, AOC. Let's see who else picked this up, because I do want to read parts of it. So the New York Post, but I believe they have a paywall block. Okay, so the Daily Mail also. So let's try the Post. Got to pay for information, people. Newspapers, you have to pay for information. It's just unreal to me. All right, so let's read this here. Looks like I have X. What is this thing up here? Why? Okay, so all right, so it looks like I got it. So here's the headline. All right, so Sean Patrick Maloney rails against AOC, didn't do anything for top Democrats, nowhere to be found. That's the quote that they have in the headline. I'll take that off now. Sorry, I still had the Captain Save a Politician up here. But we're still, I mean, it still applies, but where Maloney blames AOC. And we're gonna kind of overlap this. AOC blames Democrats also. So let's get to this part and read. Blow this up a little bit here. All right, can everybody see that? Yes. All right, so let's read. Recently ousted Rep. Sean Patrick Maloney blasted Rep. AOC while discussing congressional Democrats' poor performance in the Empire State compared to other parts of the country on Election Day. Quote, I didn't see her 1 minute of these midterms helping our House majority, Maloney complained to the New York Times. When asked about AOC's scathing criticism of the Democratic Party leadership in New York, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Chair snidely told the paper that he's quote, not sure what kind of advice she has, but I'm sure she'll be generous with it, end quote. In a tweet on Wednesday, AOC accused the New York Democratic Party of being stuffed with lobbyists and said that it must be held accountable for losses on Tuesday. Quote, New York State DEMS party leadership, which was gutted under former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, stuffed with lobbyists, works to boost GOP and failed to pass a basic state ballot measure to protect New York redistricting, must be accountable, AOC wrote on Twitter. Maloney went on to disparage AOC's contribution to the Democratic Party's better than expected defense of their House majority. Quote, let's be clear. She had almost nothing to do with what turned out to be an historic defense of our majority. Maloney said, didn't pay $1 of dues, didn't do anything for our frontline candidates except give them money when they didn't want it from her, end quote. Republican candidates won 10 House races in New York on Tuesday, including 4 with Democratic incumbents, helping the GOP as it inches its way towards a majority in the lower chamber. Wow. Maloney, who himself lost his own Hudson Valley congressional district re-election race to Republican Mike Lawler, said Thursday that while AOC is an important voice in the party, she's a ghost in Congress and on the political battlefield. Wow, he went out. He went out like a G, I guess. He goes on, quote, sorry, I got to pop up here. I know you can't see the pop up, but I can. So he goes on, right here. Where'd it go? My bad. Where'd it go? There's another one. Okay, here we go. There are other voices who should be heard, especially when suburban voters have clearly rejected ideas that she's most associated with, from defunding the police on down. So these pop-ups keep happening, so that's what's happening. So from defund the police on down, Maloney said, this is quotes from Maloney. So let me read that again because I didn't read this other part. Rep. Sean Patrick Maloney clapped back at AOC, saying that she, quote, had almost nothing to do with, quote, end quote, the House majority. Quote, there are other voices who should be heard, especially when suburban voters have clearly rejected the ideas that she's most associated with, from defunding the police on down, Maloney said. Quote, she's an important voice in our politics, but when it comes to passing our agenda through Congress or standing our ground on the political battlefield, she was nowhere to be found. Wow, he really kind of went hard at her, and you read the quotes there. Yeah, he kind of goes hard. So I'm gonna bring this down because these pop-ups are just something ridiculous when you watch. Now I remember why I don't use the New York Post, but I don't even go on our website. Just a lot of pop-ups. All right, so let's go to the next part here. So you might be asking what is going on with the redistricting, and where is it at? This one here. I'm going to show you the article. It's by Democracy Now. So now I'm kind of bringing in so you can get an understanding of where all this animosity comes from. AOC blames DEMS, New York DEMS. So let's bring in this other part of the story here. So the other part of this story is this here. You see on your screen. Democrats may lose U.S. House because New York Dem leadership were too focused on defeating the left. Now, there's a video version of this, so let's bring up now the video version. I did want to show the headline, though. So let's bring up this, and we're going to dive into some New York State politics and what's going on and how Andrew Cuomo is linked to this. So let's go to that video. We're going to play about 7 or 8 minutes of this. But let's listen. Democrats may lose U.S. House because New York Dem leaders were too...
Control of the U.S. Senate rests in the hands of 3 states, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. If the Democrats win 2 of the states, they'll keep control of the Senate. Meanwhile, Republicans have not yet won enough House seats to regain the majority. There are still over 30 House races not yet decided. On Wednesday, President Biden held a news conference at the White House about the midterm results.
While the press and the pundits are predicting a giant red wave, it didn't happen. Democrats had a strong night, and we lost fewer seats in the House of Representatives than any Democratic president's first midterm election in the last 40 years. And we had the best midterm for governors since 1986.
Many analysts say if Democrats lose control of the House, it may largely be because of New York State, where Republicans have flipped 4 congressional seats. Democratic Congress member Sean Patrick Maloney suffered one of the most shocking losses Tuesday. He's the chair of the powerful Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. According to the Cook Political Report, Maloney is the first sitting House Campaign Committee chair to lose a race in 30 years. Meanwhile, in the New York governor's race, Democrat Kathy Hochul defeated Republican-backed Lee Zeldin, but by just over 5 percentage points. 2 years ago, Joe Biden beat Donald Trump in New York by 22 percentage points. On Wednesday, New York Congressmember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called for the resignation of Jay Jacobs. He's the chair of the New York State Democratic Committee. To look more at what happened in New York and what it could mean for the country, we're joined by 2 guests. Zohran Mamdani is a New York State Assembly member, and Sochi Numika is director of the New York Working Families Party. Zohran Mamdani, I wanted to begin with you. If you can help to explain what took place in New York. It wasn't just random that Democrats lost a 4 major House seats, which could determine the balance of the House of Representatives. If you can talk about why Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, yourself as well, have demanded the resignation of the head of the Democratic Party of New York and what this has to do with a ballot initiative and redistricting in New York, one of the most Byzantine states for rules around elections and voting.
Absolutely. Well, I think on Tuesday, what we saw was an illustration of just how broken our state party machinery is, and that is across the entirety of the state. Last November, we had a ballot measure, which, if passed, would have ensured that we could have had a more favorable map for Democratic congressional races going into this election. And that ballot measure was opposed by the state Republican Party to the tune of $3 million and an entire statewide tour. Yet meanwhile, the Democratic Party, headed by Jay Jacobs, spent $0 on supporting that ballot measure.
So if just to get caught up on the story, if you're not following, there's a ballot measure that would have given the Democrats the power to gerrymander. That's what's happening. They're mad that they weren't able to gerrymander. So the Republicans spent $3 million to defeat it, and Jay Jacobs, the head of the Democratic Party or committee in the New York State, spends $0. So they're mad about that. So this is not the first time AOC has asked for Jay Jacobs' resignation.
And as is no surprise to any of us because of the disparity in spending and effort, that ballot measure lost. And the loss of that ballot measure was then used as a pretext in the court cases that occurred afterwards to ensure that we had state-drawn maps, maps which were then far more favorable to Republicans, and maps which may be part of the reason why we do not hold the House. So all of that from both November into this moment right here has illustrated that our state party is simply not up to the job. The state party chairman, Jay Jacobs, is not the man to lead it, or the person rather. He has instead been far more focused on defeating the left than defeating the right. He spent $7,500.
To me, this illustrates the issue with progressives trying to be within the Democratic Party. So basically, progressives are saying that the corrupt people that they've chosen to team up with have turned on them. You've chosen to team up with this party. Now this party who doesn't really care about the things you care about has done this. Now, but to be clear, they're upset that they weren't allowed to gerrymander the district in favor of gerrymander the state in favor of Democrats.
$100 to beat one of my colleagues, Jabari Brisport, who is running for re-election in a primary, which is $75,000 more than he ever spent on passing that referendum, which could have ensured that Joe Biden.
Let me rewind that because I kind of messed up his point here. Let's make him make the point, the linear point here.
Here has illustrated that our state party is simply not up to the job. The state party chairman, Jay Jacobs, is not the man to lead it, or the person rather. He has instead been far more focused on defeating the left than defeating the right. He spent $7,500 to beat one of my colleagues, Jabari Brisport, who is running for re-election in a primary, which is $75,000 more than he ever spent on passing that referendum, which could have ensured that Joe Biden would have had control over the entirety of Congress to pass a Democratic agenda over the next 2 years.
And so, Ron, could you explain when you say what happened last November with the ballot measure, explain why it's so important, redistricting and state-drawn maps?
Absolutely. So every 10 years with the census, the state has to redistrict all of its districts from the local to the congressional level. And there was a ballot measure which stated that if the Independent Redistricting Commission, a commission that had been created by Governor Cuomo, which had the same number of Democrats and Republicans, if that commission could not agree on a set of maps, then a simple majority of the legislature would suffice in creating new maps. And as we know, whenever you create a commission with the same number of Democrats and Republicans with the stakes as high as redistricting, there's a very low likelihood of them agreeing on any one set of maps. So we knew that it was going to come to the legislature. And if this referendum had been passed, then it would have ensured that the legislature had a clear mandate from New Yorkers to redraw those maps. The referendum did not pass. The legislature drew its own maps, and then the Republicans sued those maps in court. And the highest court, the judges specifically who were appointed by Andrew Cuomo, sided with the Republicans and used this referendum as part of the justice.
So, I mean, you got Democrats at every level that's making decisions to help to work against the Democrats. Isn't that what he's explaining here?
For why those new maps had to be thrown out. And as a consequence, they ordered a special master, which is a title of an individual who drew new maps for the state of New York, to draw these maps. And many of these maps ended up being far more favorable to Republicans than the ones that would have been passed had we passed that referendum.
And then you had people like Carolyn Maloney, these congressional stalwarts, the OG, the old guard, versus Gerald Nadler. They have always been colleagues for decades in the House.
Right. So she's speaking to the point. So that's when we saw all these races, these people who would normally not ever run against each other because of what he's speaking about. All of this redistricting that happened in New York and the domino effect of this committee that wasn't able to come to terms. It was equal Democrats and Republicans, and then it was challenged and it was lost, and it ended up writing or drawing maps that was less favorable to Democrats, and they lost. So they want that person who did not put funds into the ballot measure, I don't know if it's called a ballot measure or the initiative, a referendum, I think they called it, to be gone. And that's that's the point of AOC also. But let's also, where's the other clip here? So let's listen to a little bit. TYT gives the backstory of Sean Patrick Maloney losing, along with Mondaire Jones. So that part of the story. So let's make sure we include that. And we may come back to this video because there's another person from the Working Families Party that also makes a great point before we wrap all of this up for today. So let's listen to a little bit of Cenk and Anna talk about this. Now, this video is progressive incumbents faces coordinated attack from leadership. Now, remember how AOC didn't do anything for him? This is where it could be the genesis, him deciding to kind of Bigfoot Mondaire Jones really caused the problem in the with progressives. So let's watch. I think Cenk is in this video, and Cenk.
A newly redrawn congressional map in New York is causing all sorts of drama on the Hill between incumbent Democrats as moderate Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney tries to essentially screw over the progressive in New York, Mondaire Jones. So the new map was drawn by a court-appointed expert after the Democrats' version was deemed unconstitutional by a New York state court. Now, that version would have gained Democrats 3 additional congressional seats in the state of New York. But less than an hour after the new map became public, Maloney, the representative for New York's 18th district, who also happens to be the DCCC chair, announced that he would run in District 17, which is where Mondaire Jones currently serves. So he announced this on Twitter without giving anyone any notice, saying, while the process to draw these maps without the legislature is against the will of voters, if the newly announced map are final.
So they're saying it without saying it. Now, when it gets to Cenk, he actually starts using the word gerrymander, because we need to make sure we understand what's happening here, because they're not talking about they're not using a word they're talking about. This is all about them having the ability to gerrymander districts in favor of Democrats. This is what they're upset about. It was a Democratic legislator that drew the maps, and it was deemed unconstitutional. This is Sean Patrick Maloney's tweet. While the process to draw these maps without the legislator is against the will of voters, while the process to gerrymander the district has been foiled, that's what he really should be saying. If the newly announced maps are finalized, I will run in New York's 17th congressional district. New York 17 includes my home and many of Hudson Valley communities I currently represent. So he put that out in May of this year. And let's listen some more.
Maps are finalized, I will run in New York's 17th congressional district. New York 17 includes my home and many of the Hudson Valley communities I currently represent. Now, Maloney is the moderate here. And again, he's going to be running in the district that's currently being represented by progressive Mondaire Jones. Now, this is all interesting considering that the DCCC says that it's all about protecting its incumbents, but that protection is usually only offered to corporate members of their party. Let's keep it real.
So I'll go a little further. So first of all, let's just acknowledge that if they had passed the voting rights bill, none of this would be an issue, okay? It would have ended gerrymandering completely. We would have different districts and fair districts. But of course, as usual, the Democrats didn't pass anything they promised to pass. The voting rights bill didn't pass. So then we have this mess on our hands now where, they gerrymander and then the courts say you can't gerrymander. Then they're going to go back to redrawing the maps. It's a total debacle. But the biggest part of the story,
you see where he admits the gerrymandering part,
is the one that mainstream press is not exactly covering. So to be fair to them, they're covering the story fairly significantly because it's drama. It's a soap opera where Democrats are fighting one another. And by the way, that's part of why we tell progressives to fight their so-called colleagues, because the press loves that. But I want you to do it on issues that matter to the American people: $15 minimum wage, healthcare, etc. They almost never do that. Notice now, when it's their districts, all of a sudden, everyone in Congress is animated about this. And even progressive adjacent Congress people, not anywhere near the squad, they're coming out publicly against Maloney. I've never seen that. And because they're like, wait, if they do it to Mondaire Jones, but they might do it to me. All of a sudden, it's about my ass. Now none of them were anywhere near this animated on Build Back Better, voting rights, any of the things that actually affected the voters. But then when it comes to their power, all of a sudden they're all super upset, okay? So, but overall, I like that they're fighting back, including people in a broader section of the Democratic Party. That's a good phenomenon. Now so the press is covering all that, and credit where credit is due. The part they're leaving out is they keep saying that Maloney is running in Mondaire Jones' district because it's slightly safer, that it's D+10 instead of D+.
They go in. He goes into more of their back and forth about the details. I'm not really interested at that. I think we can probably cut this segment here. Or Sean Patrick Maloney is out of Congress. Mondaire Jones is out of Congress, and the House and the speakership being held by the Democrats was likely lost through or by way of New York State. So I don't know what's going to happen, but all of this is connected. It goes back to it starts with Andrew Cuomo and the redistricting. It all starts there. If the referendum passed, if the referendum wasn't challenged, or the challenge wasn't successful, we wouldn't be talking about this. If Democrats were able to gerrymander, because that's how you win races now. So you're competitive because you can't deliver anything for anybody. So you just want to run in a D+4, a D+40, a D+30, a D+20, an R+ that. That's what our democracy has gotten to at this point. But it is infighting for people in the Democratic Party. I thought it was interesting. So that's why I wanted to cover it today. Is there anything I'm leaving out here? Hang on a second here. Likely, Jane covers it likely one day. There was another one also talks about. There was another one. Kind of tired when I get off of there. Democrats lose House because of. I think I'm going to leave it here. I got the unbossed clip. Well, I'm gonna play this, Jake. I'm gonna play some because the note I have here is Jank covers this like Wendy Williams. So let me see why I say this in the notes, because I don't remember why I say this. But I say in my notes, he covers it like Wendy Williams. So let's see what I mean by that. I just want to see that part at least. The title is AOC backs progressive challenger in race against the Democrat. So this is the part I'm saying. So the redistricting happening in the video, right? And he shows you the tweet from Sean Patrick Maloney saying he's going to be going in District 17 or whatever the district number was. This is now the next part. Chronologically, AOC backs his challenger. So let's listen to why I said I referred to Wendy Williams for this clip. Let's see.
Right now of civil war within the Democratic Party and why it's awesome. Not awesome as in fun, although it's fun as you're about to see. But it's really important and strategic. But this one's a hot mess. So let me start from the beginning and explain what's happening. Okay, so first we start with this woman. You might recognize her. She was really angry at this guy. Who
yeah, now I remember how
now really angry because of this woman. And this guy was so.
So he gives the story. You know how earlier I gave the story of chronologically what happened, Matt. So he does that, but he does it in this way. So now I remember why I said that. So let's listen. He kind of just recaps, and then we'll end here with this recap.
So I'm going to tell you a really interesting story now of civil war within the Democratic Party and why it's awesome. Not awesome as in fun, although it's fun as you're about to see. But it's really important and strategic. But this one's a hot mess. So let me start from the beginning and explain what's happening. Okay, so first we start with this woman. You might recognize her. She was really angry at this guy, who was now really angry because of this woman. And this guy was so duplicitous that he was going to screw over this guy, who then thought about fighting against this guy. Wait a minute. But he decided, no, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to fight this guy. What in the world? So then here comes this woman again, and she's elated because now he's elated. But back to the other guy, he's really mad, and so is his friend. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy steps in and helps the Republicans. This is a mess, but a wonderful mess. And then this guy comes along. You don't know this guy at all, but he's one of the worst guys in the Democratic Party. I'm going to explain who all these folks are in a second.
So, as you can see, he did it in some, I guess he was trying to be funny there, but he's basically just giving you the saga of what is happening. And so this is basically a personal thing between AOC and Sean Patrick Maloney. Oh, you're going to take out one of our progressives. This is AOC speaking. Then I'm going to go ahead and endorse your other person. And he thought, oh, okay, I beat her. And he said, I beat her 2-1. And then he goes ahead and loses. So it's all funny to me. And I like to cover, sometimes I like to cover this drama. I think Fridays shows I try to keep lighter unless there's really some really important news to cover. So that's the end of this segment. I think we will close it, or I know we will close it here. And we're coming to an end of another stream, keeping this one right or roughly at about 2.5 hours. Where did I put this here? What else do I got? All right, so let's share my other screen here. Actually, no, I got it. 1 second, everybody, just in case there's no more Twitter messaging. Oh, is Twitter going offline? Are they closing Twitter? Is that what's happening? I just got a message from somebody. I'm not gonna say that. Saying that if giving me the if Twitter closes, here's my contact. Actually, it's 4 messages saying that. Here's my contact information. Is Twitter closing? Something happening to Twitter that I'm not aware of here. All right, so let me go to my closeout video. All right, so here we go. I like this video as a closeout, so let's do it. I will show our I will pop up our how do I click on it? I will pop up our Substack one last time before I head out. So if you want to join our Substack, because we will have to, cut some clips up from this. So if you want to make sure you get those clips, you're going to want to join our Substack. So let me bring that up on our way out. Here is our Substack. Let's pause this one here. This video here will be our outro video. But this is our Substack. Join our Substack if you want to get notifications of live streams. Like this video on your way out. Subscribe to our channel. Make sure you are subscribed. If you are already subscribed is the way I should say it. Double check to make sure you are still subscribed. And the last thing, on your way out, please like the stream. We're at 425. Let's see if we can get 450 on our way out. And this is our closeout video. Everybody have a great a great weekend. And if you are able to go out and party, be safe tonight.
What is the Polish spirit? Whenever I'm asked this question, I like to tell the story of Haiti, an island in the middle of the Caribbean which was colonized in the 15th century and then turned into a massive sugar plantation to which hundreds of thousands of African slaves were brought. It was one of the most lucrative and wealthiest colonies there were. At the end of the 18th century, the slaves rebelled. And in 1802, Napoleon Bonaparte, the French leader, decided to reassert French control over the island and sent the French army. Alongside the French, he sent a Polish legion. The Poles had recently lost their country. It was partitioned by the Austrians, the Prussians, and the Russians. And the Poles were fighting alongside Napoleon in the hopes that they would regain their homeland. It was only upon arrival in Haiti that the Poles were informed of the nature of their mission: to put down a slave rebellion. This reminded the Poles of their own struggle against their own colonial powers who had taken over Poland. That is why they switched sides. They abandoned the French and joined General Dessalines, fighting alongside the slaves, and contributed to the creation of the first free Black Republic. When the Haitian Revolution was won, General Dessalines, who took power in Haiti, recognized the Poles, granted them in the constitution full Haitian citizenship, and gave them the classification of Noir, of blacks. To this day, there are many Haitians who have blue eyes. That is because the Poles settled there after the victory, and there are many Haitians with the very Polish surname of Zalewski. That is the Polish spirit, a spirit of love for freedom, of hatred, of oppression, and of always fighting for the underdog on the side of freedom, independence, and sovereignty. The story of Haiti is one that embodies the Polish spirit.